Okay, so we're going to talk about how antidiuretic hormone and how it works to balance the water levels in the body. Okay, its role. Maintaining an adequate water balance in the body is important to avoid dehydration or overhydration. The water concentration of the body is monitored by osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus, which detect the concentration of electrolytes in the extracellular fluid. The concentration of electrolytes in the blood rises when there is water loss caused by excessive sweating, insufficient water intake, or low blood volume due to significant blood loss. An increase in blood electrolyte levels results in a neuronal signal sent from the osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus. The pituitary gland has two components, anterior and posterior. The anterior side is composed of glandular cells that secrete protein hormones. The posterior part of the pituitary is part of the hypothalamus. It's composed mainly of neurons that are continuous with the hypothalamus. Now, the hypothalamus produces a polypeptide hormone known as antidiuretic hormone, which will be referenced as ADH, and it's released by the posterior part of the pituitary gland. The primary effect of ADH is to regulate the amount of water excreted by the kidneys. As ADH causes water reabsorption from the kidney tubules, salts and wastes are concentrated in what will ultimately be excreted as urine. The hypothalamus controls the mechanisms of ADH secretion, either by regulating blood volume or the concentration of water in the blood. Dehydration or vigorous exercise can cause an increase of osmolarity above 300 osmoles per liter, which subsequently raises ADH secretion and water will be retained. This causes an increase in blood pressure. ADH travels in the bloodstream to the kidneys. At the kidneys, ADH changes the kidneys to become more permeable to water by temporarily inserting water channels, called aquaporins, into the kidney tubules. Water moves out of the kidney tubules through these aquaporins, thus reducing urine volume. The water is reabsorbed into the capillaries, lowering blood osmolarity back toward a normal range. As blood osmolarity decreases, a negative feedback mechanism reduces osmoreceptor activity in the hypothalamus and ADH secretion is reduced. Now, in the next part of this video, we'll go over the steps of how H2O blood content returns to normal. So first we start with the example when there's too much water ingested in the body. When too much water is in the blood, essentially the H2 content in the body is too high. Therefore, this is detected by osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus. So the brain, that's our brain, decreases ADH secretion. It's decreased. So the pituitary releases less ADH. That means that the renal tubule reabsorbs less water. The low volume of water is reabsorbed by kidneys, and large volumes of dilute urine is produced. That's a picture of our kidney there. After this, we notice a low volume of water which passes back into the blood. And this water blood concentration returns to normal. Now on the other side of our chart, we'll talk about what happens when water is lost, when too much water is lost in the body. And that means that the water content of our blood is really low. Too little water in the blood is then detected by the brain, specifically by osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus, specifically in the pituitary region, which has the pituitary gland release a higher amount of ADH. So it's the same mechanism as on the other side of the chart, but the reaction is different, of course. This prompts the renal tubules to reabsorb more water, and there's a high volume of water reabsorbed by the kidneys here, and small amounts of concentrated urine are produced. And this means that there's a higher volume of water which passes back into the bloodstream. And our blood concentration returns to normal. That's how we achieve homeostasis, water balance. I hope you found this video informative. Thank you very much for tuning in.